Hello and welcome to today's Ask Me Anything here from the office at the Cash Compound, headquarters, Greer, South Carolina. I am here today to answer your questions about infinite banking, whole life insurance, this whole idea of becoming your own banker. So make sure to put any questions that you have down in the chat so we can address those here for the benefit of everybody. Let me know where you're at in your process. Are you still vetting this idea, this concept of becoming your own banker? Are you already in underwriting, already in the application process to apply for one of these types of policies that you hear us talking about? Are you already practicing? What are you doing with your policies? Where are you calling in from? Just let me know. Anything that's relevant to you or helpful to you, that's the purpose behind this Ask Me Anything. I'm keeping an eye on our Zoom, on our YouTube. I'm here for your questions. This is Ask Me Anything about the infinite banking concept, the idea of saving and spending your money at the same time, which is a beautiful concept. I discovered it in 2015. I had a business partner ask me to show up. He just was excited on the phone, asked me to show up to a seminar. Now, I probably needed to say that it was a business partner at first to say something about a seminar next, because I'll just tell you where I'm from. Most people are not showing up on their Saturdays and evenings and those types of things for personal growth and development or seminars or looking at ideas. But you business-minded folks, you understand. Excuse me. This guy, he had credibility with me. We were on the same page of growing and expanding what we were doing in business. When I hear him excited about money and about being your own banker and just saying that phrase, I loved the independence just behind the title, the autonomy that I felt behind the title. Do that for myself, be my own banker. It's amazing. It's fantastic. So it led me to watching a presentation. If you haven't seen our full recorded presentation, it is the place to be introduced to this concept comprehensively, because we walk through some real life scenarios. We talk about the nuts and the bolts behind implementing the concept and what that can look like. So I would encourage you to check out our free presentation. Links are in the bio, of course. So that's what I did. I saw a presentation, and then I talked with a professional, just like I'm sitting here, to be able to answer questions on our Zoom and on our YouTube and everywhere else where we share this information. I got to have some questions answered about what I'd seen. And then also about, well, I've got this going on in my life, and I've got the 401k, and our second son was just born, and those types of things. I was getting the picture painted, getting that fleshed out to see, okay, well, where's my entry point? How am I going to get started? I saw that amazing thing that I just saw about you and your money and compounding and all this stuff. But I needed to know a couple of things, of course, and I've been on the phone today. I feel, if you're hearing me for the first time, you might not know this, but my voice is tired. I've been on the phone with folks today in Oregon and Connecticut and just all over the place. And here we are for the AMA, of course, to be able to address questions. But speaking with a professional who's actually implementing this process is so very important. You know, the person that I was able to ask my questions to, they'd paid off a mountain of debt themselves. And there I was with $50,000 of debt and student loans, credit cards, car note, all kinds of stuff. And I saw a way for me to be able to do that exact same thing, but do it in a way where I got the money back. And I kept that in my family, which was just the proverbial light bulb moment for me. So being invited to see the information, seeing the information, getting to ask questions from a professional who had also personally implemented the concept. And then, of course, that led to an application and getting my first policy and using that first policy. I mean, I was on the phone today making a policy loan today on my oldest policy. So this will be the 9th year that I've had that policy. For the better part of a decade, I've been practicing this concept personally. I've been helping folks for the past 5 or so years, I guess now, professionally speaking. But I've just personally been implementing this process on the phone, making policy loan today with a company that we own policies with. So it's just a really neat thing. It's a really neat thing for me to be here. I'm keeping an eye on questions, whether you get to see this live or whether you get to see it later. I just want to be an open book here before you and share my experience and being exposed to the idea of becoming my own banker. letting you know a little bit about what it looked like for me getting started. I felt very much like that average All-American with debt, with a growing family, with aspirations of doing better financially in the future and having more independence and autonomy over what I wanted to do when it came to finances, creating a different starting point for the next generations that were coming. As a young father, that was definitely sticking out in my mind for sure. Describing to you how we use those policies in those first years and then seeing the transition that we got to, of course, over the past several years now. But thanks for tuning in. I would appreciate hearing where you are watching from. We like seeing this kind of stuff. Of course, I help folks all across the country. Like I said, I was referencing my notes earlier as I just got off the phone right at the hour for recording with a guy in Pennsylvania. And before that, I believe it was a guy in Oregon, and just talking with folks all across the country. So that's cool for us to be able to see. Let us know where you are tuning in from, where you're watching from, whether you're seeing this live, whether you see the recording. That's neat for us to be able to see. And of course, there will be links in our description and bio to be able to do exactly what I was just describing a moment ago, which is have a one-on-one. We put out this public forum right here, of course, and we record it to be able to post later, where you could benefit from questions that someone asks about this, that, or the other, of course. But there's nothing like that one-on-one strategy call that you can have with a coach here from the Cash Compound, where you are talking about what your financial footprint looks like right now, some goals that you have over the next 12 months, some goals you have over the next 5 years, 50 years. I mean, really, however far ahead you can wrap your mind around time, the better off you're going to be. But we like having that belly-to-belly, that face-to-face, that personal interaction where we're custom building a policy for your needs, both short-term and as long-range as you can wrap your mind around. But it's a progression. It takes time. And part of that is learning about this concept. We're here to help speed up that learning curve. That's what the AMA is for. Glad you're tuning in. Love to hear what your questions are. And as I monitor our chats and everything here, I'll continue to share some nuts and bolts, some real life examples. I'll give you one. So today I just got notice that one of our clients was approved for a policy, which is great. We're always excited about that. And what started our conversation was she found us online, of course, and she recently had an inheritance come in. And we were talking about what she had going on. There was some debt there. Part of that was student loan debt, and wanted to be able to pay that off. And we're talking through that. And then there are these business ideas and passive income even. Of course, it doesn't take you long to really lay out, this segment of life perhaps and these goals and those types of things, and just walk that timeline out. And the idea, here's one of the big things that we touched on, the idea that you can take dollars and use them multiple times. It's a big concept. So, all right, let me jump in. Promise asks, am I able to get a policy on my nephew? If so, how does the insurance company determine the death benefit for him? That's a great question. So let me answer the last part of it first. So the death benefit on a minor's policy is typically half of whatever the parent's coverage is. So if the parents have $250,000, or $500,000, let's say, for easy math, $500,000 in death benefit, a child could be insured for $250,000 in death benefit, to answer the second part of your question. And then getting a policy on a nephew, yeah, absolutely. Anybody that you have an insurable interest in, you can get a policy on them, okay? You just need to be working with somebody who, presents that case, of course, to the insurance company. That can be handled in a cover letter saying, hey, this is so-and-so looking to get policy on a nephew, on a niece, whatever the case may be. Of course, my wife and I, we own policies on our children, for example. That's another, we own the policies because they're minors. They can't own them. But, of course, we can insure them, like I said, half of the amount that my wife and I are insured. So that's a great question, and it's a real pertinent one for folks that are legacy-minded, folks that are thinking big picture. again, I've been kind of talking about some of my conversations with clients and prospective clients. Had a great conversation the other day with somebody in their 50s who had met with their siblings. They had intentionally dedicated some time over a weekend. And they even lived in different states. They had to travel to meet up, to have this in person. And they had this in-person family meeting, essentially, where they're talking about, hey, we just dealt with so-and-so passing in the family, so-and-so passing in the family, and, here we are in our 50s, and let's do something different. Let's start now. Let's do something different to where when it's our turn, we're really setting up the next generation differently. We're definitely not leaving them, in a position of having to cover costs, but rather we're adding to what the family could be doing in the future, which is really, really great. So I appreciate that question. Promise, is that helpful? Does that make you have a follow-up question? And of course, as always, you can book a call to have a free consultation with a coach from the Cash Compound. Could be me. My name's Jesse. I live in North Carolina. I'm in office today, of course, at Greer, South Carolina, but I'd be happy to discuss that further with you. But feel free to put any other questions that you don't mind me addressing here out there, and I will get to them. Awesome. Appreciate the follow-up. If his parents aren't insured, will he get insured for half of my death benefit amount, or do his parents have to be insured? Yep, great question. And you are right. His parents would need to have coverage because, remember, the insurance company is evaluating risk, and what they're saying is, well, there's certainly no logical reason for us to insure the child if the caretakers for that child don't have coverage. That's the logical place to start. So the parents would need to have some coverage. And that's where, again, having a conversation with someone who's knowledgeable about infinite banking really matters, because what type of insurance for either the parents or the child matters. If the parents have some insurance through work, that does count also. It doesn't have to be private insurance. If they have insurance through work, the child can be insured for up to half of whatever that is. If they have something private, good. If they don't, I understand that would be the place to start. So then maybe the question becomes, could you have an insurance policy on a sibling? The answer is yes there as well. So just trying to be helpful, but you let me know if that is helpful, or how I can dial in my answers to help best. But I appreciate that question. Yeah, and on that note about, and I was having a conversation about this today, which is really cool. There's also a way. So for folks that are being exposed to this idea of becoming your own banker, we talk about properly structured whole life insurance policies with mutual companies that pay dividends. But those same companies, same great mutual life insurance companies, also offer convertible term. So in a situation like this, where maybe you see yourself wanting to do something great, for a child, which is start a policy on them while they're young, and then when they become of age, they could have this ideal appreciating asset, that you've been funding for them while they are a minor, and then they can become an adult, and then they have this mature whole life policy that they could be using for getting their first car or launching a business, or who knows, just whatever, right? It's a transferable asset. You could transfer the ownership to that nephew, to that niece, whoever it is that you have in mind, of course, when they become of age. And to facilitate getting that coverage on the parents, what I started to say right there was you could consider convertible term insurance. So meaning that it's term insurance, so you've got term-like premiums on the parents, let's say, because you're really trying to, fund your dollars perhaps towards the child's policy. So you could do term type insurance towards the parents that could still be converted to whole life insurance later on, which is fantastic. It's a way to be able to lock in their insurable interest, their human life value right away, and have the option to transfer it to a whole life policy later on. But that would also allow you to get the insurance on the child, the whole life insurance on the child too. It just depends on the types of premiums that you want to pay. And again, that's why the conversation one-on-one, right? But feel free to ask more questions. I appreciate that. Appreciate you tuning in. Let me know where you're calling in from or where you're listening in from. That's really cool for me to be able to see. Appreciate it. and I'm really bad not to check my screens. I'll get on a thought and I'll forget to check my screens and be checking for other people's questions at the same time or letting them in on the different platforms. And we do this Zoom call, and here's something that we will do from time to time, of course, is we'll field questions, because that's the first thing that we want to do. We'll also take this opportunity to teach some particular subject. Like I gave a live talk. I guess it wasn't this week, it was a week prior. But anyway, I met at a local nonprofit where I live, and it was a networking event for entrepreneurs, business owners, really anybody that wanted to network in the area. And we had a great meet and greet. We had, of course, a key speaker, and at that particular one, I was asked to speak. Very grateful, had a good time. And I was making, of course, a presentation on how to implement privatized banking, in this idea of saving and spending your money at the same time, which is so integral to business owners. I mean, cash flow is king, of course. That's so very vital to folks that have payroll and overhead and taxes and those types of things on their mind in running their business. They want to do good things with money. They want to be able to save money, but they need to be able to spend money at the same time, of course, on a very regular basis. So it was just a great opportunity to be able to cover something really pragmatic, really practical that could be implemented right away. I mean, we all essentially have these three choices of we could pay for things with credit, we could pay for things with cash, and we could have compounding, which is what we talk about here, of course. So I really enjoyed that. And I'm saying that to say, if you have some topic that you'd like to see covered, we've probably already put some information out there on our YouTube channel about it, but don't hesitate to let us know if you would like to see more of something, or you would like to address some particular topic, just like I did live. We do that here on our AMA, which is live virtually, of course, and it's recorded for later times as well. But I give a talk on business owners and using infinite banking for business. And there are lots of other segments. We could be talking about nonprofits. We could be talking about legacy. We could be talking about family banking. Again, going back to Promise Strotter's question, what about nephew? What about niece? What about family members? You could think up and down the family tree, which is a really cool thing to implement as well. Intergenerational thinking, planning, acting when it comes to finances. All right, who else? Let me know what your questions are. I am watching the chat. There's a very real danger of me pushing the wrong button on my end. Okay, what are your questions about saving and spending money at the same time? How's that possible? What are your questions about whole life insurance? Because, again, I'm thinking about the guy now that I was just on the phone with in Pennsylvania. Railroad worker. Really hard work, right? Really hard job. 10 more years to retirement. Wants to be able to look forward to that. And he's seen our recorded presentation, which is helpful. But again, he asked me, well, what's that distinguishing factor? What's the difference between whole life and IUL? Because those are popping up, of course, the algorithm would have it in the same space. If somebody just mentions the words insurance or infinite banking or compounding, it's going to put all the same stuff in the same strain, in the same vein in the algorithm, of course. And it's something that I addressed. All right, another follow-up question. I love it. 3 in a row. That was very helpful. Thank you. You are welcome. I haven't been able to convince my siblings to get insured yet. Okay, I feel you there. I was wanting to take the initiative to get my nephew started. Does this particular company offer term insurance? The answer is yes, that company does, and they offer that convertible kind that I was just mentioning to you. I own policies with that company myself, personally, more than one. Great company. And I feel you on, you were wanting to take the initiative. So I've been in this space personally. I'm saying I've implemented infinite banking for 9 years now, and I have one sibling that does also. and I have many siblings that don't. But that hasn't stopped my brother and I that do get this concept and that do use this concept from getting policies on them. So I can really appreciate right where you're at and what you are wanting to do. I commend you. I'd love to be able to help you in that. Love to be able to have that personal conversation about what you would like that to look like. I just relish the idea, the thought, the reality that my wife and I are bringing about by starting policies on all of our children. We've got a 10-year-old, 8-year-old, and a 4-year-old currently, 2 boys and a girl. And all of them have had policies for years now. And I just relish the thought of them not having to have the same get a car experience the way me and my wife did. I've bought cars cash, and I've financed cars traditionally, conventionally. And I'd like our children, of course, not to have that same kind of experience. Go and ask permission from a bank to borrow money to have transportation. No, thank you. No, thank you. I'd rather not. And same thing for home, same thing for a college education, same thing for starting a business, same thing for anything. Same thing for anything, just creating a completely different financial paradigm for the Durhams. So I love you wanting to do that for your family. You saying something specific about that one insurance company just makes me think that maybe you're probably already a client, of course, and you have policies and you're starting to broaden your gaze, your vision for the family at large. And I just want to commend you in that. I want to encourage you in that, and I want to help you in that. So jump in my calendar, or whoever your coach is. If you're already working with somebody, get up with them. Let them know. And on that note, I mean, what I look for in a client is not somebody that wants to be dependent on me, but somebody who wants to participate. Like you're showing up, you're participating, you're asking questions. I appreciate that so much. Somebody who's participating in their own learning, somebody who's participating in growing and scaling what it is that they want to do. But I certainly do want to create as close of a relationship as somebody would like to have to help them implement the infinite banking concept, but not to be dependent upon me, because I know that I don't want to be dependent upon anybody else in my financial paradigm, right? So I really appreciate you, promise, for coming back to back and helping me dial that answer in for you. Okay, what other questions? I'm checking, and if I need to, I'll return back, and I'll give you the same answer that I gave the gentleman from Pennsylvania that I was talking to earlier about, okay, infinite banking, I love it. I want to do that. I've been exposed to this idea, and I believe he was in his 50s. He's saying, of course, everything that we all say is like, why didn't I find out about this in my 20s? And some of you are. Some of you, fortunately, are finding out about this in your 20s. But I didn't, and he didn't, right? And when we are exposed to this, and we see a presentation, and we have an opportunity to speak with somebody, here we are in the day and age of social media where, again, the algorithm is just going to put out the IULs and investment type stuff right alongside of whole life insurance and infinite banking as described in R. Nelson Nash's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, 5th edition, just because of the same words, infinite banking, compounding, money, insurance, that kind of stuff. But in a word, what I told him the difference is, in a word, is risk. Risk. There's some risk that you maintain as the policy owner if you're owning any type of universal life product that you otherwise would not maintain if you had a whole life insurance policy. And we can get into the nuts and bolts, and I told him same thing. We can get to the nuts and bolts on that. But in a word, it's risk. And at the end of the day, if you understand that concept of, well, I have the opportunity here to mitigate risk by doing this, I would rather do that. And I do. So let me know if that's helpful. Let me know if that's relevant for you. Of course, we can take the conversation anywhere that you would like that would be helpful, whether you're vetting this concept. And promise, if I'd be interested, if you don't mind saying, are you already a client? Are you still vetting this concept and you're just asking these detailed questions? Love to hear. Appreciate you tuning in, you and everybody else out in the YouTube land. I'm sorry. It's either you watch me drink a little bit of water from time to time, my voice is going to crack. What other questions do you have? Infinite banking, whole life insurance, getting out of debt, any of it. Okay, appreciate you answering me back. I opened a small policy in December a couple of years back for myself. Awesome. And I opened a small policy for my two sons 6 months later. Neat. That's a natural progression, seems like. Same thing happened for us. I got a policy, and then it wasn't, probably 6 months later we applied, and then within 8 months, I guess it was, we had our second policy, which was on my wife. And you're saying, I want all of my family to get involved, but especially for the children. Here's my encouragement, and I should have said this earlier. Here's my encouragement. If they are willing, because it's hard. Like Scripture says it this way, a prophet's not without honor in their own country, meaning we're not going to convince anybody of anything, but we can offer to share a book with them or point them towards a video or something. And they're either willing or not willing. A buddy of mine has said it this way before. You can't push a dead bear up a tree. I mean, you can think of the other saying, right? Like lead a horse to water, can't make it drink, all that kind of stuff. But if they're open to watching, just if you ask them if they're open to taking an hour of their watch time, because they're going to watch something for an hour, take an hour of their watch time and take a look at what it is you've been trying to tell them about. See if they'll just say yes. You never know. They could have their light bulb moment. They could. Or, refer them to get, I used to get copies of this book for folks, and I pretty much quit doing that because you value something, when you have skin in the game. Does that make sense? I was so animated and excited about folks understanding this that I'd be trying to get them the book left and right, get them the book. And we can't make people interested. We can't make people open-minded, but we can share the good news. So that's all I'm trying to do is I'm trying to encourage you. Maybe consider having a family meeting where you talk about goals, where you talk about desires, where you paint the picture in the terms of what you could do as a family, and not necessarily get into the nuts and bolts of this. Let them get in the book if they'll get in the book. Let them watch the video if they'll get in the video. I'll put this out there to you as well, promise. We as coaches here at the Cash Compound, again, get with your coach. We're more than willing to do a Zoom call with you and your family. Let us explain to them, what it is that you've decided to do. I mean, I know you could say it. You know this is a great idea. You're already doing it, have been for a couple of years. I get that. I love it. But there's something about hearing it from someone else. If you're a parent, you understand this, right? Like you could say something to your children a million times, okay? And it's just this way. And then somebody else could say it to them one time and they get it and they even do it. And that's just the way that it is. So that's why I referenced that scripture earlier about a prophet's not without honor in their own country, right? Their own country. So let us do a Zoom call with you and the fam where we're talking about these policies and how we're using them. Get somebody like me on there who's willing to share how we paid off $50,000 worth of student loans, cars, credit card debt. Right? Let me jump on there and talk about how we financed our last half a dozen or whatever vacations with our private banking system. Let me jump on there and talk about some real estate deals that we financed with our whole life insurance policies. Let me get on there and talk about how we manage our recurring expenses, normal, regular recurring expenses with our banking system. So that's my encouragement to you. I hope that's helpful. You let me know. I appreciate the dialogue back and forth, even though you're doing it in on the chat because you're tuning in on YouTube. I appreciate that. Yeah, wanting to get your family involved. I love that. Well, I'm afraid I might have to cut this short or plug in my computer. I didn't even get my computer plugged in. But y'all let me know. I'm still watching till the thing shuts down. I'm still watching the chats. Put your questions in here and I will answer them. I've sent them videos. Promise says they're still on the fence about the whole thing. Okay. I'll probably get term on my siblings just so I can get policies for my nephews. They will eventually fall in line. Yep, that's awesome. That's awesome. And again, the personal conversation will be helpful, so we can talk about how to go about that. But that convertible term, I mean, if you are the owner of the policy, the nice thing is, of course, you're going to be picking the premiums. That's going to make sense for you. Do what makes sense for you. And whether you get policies on your siblings, because here's how I look at it. If you have policies on the siblings, that's great, because heaven forbid if something happened to them early, right? Well, we're all going to graduate. But if something happened to them early while the minors are still minors, then you as the owner are going to be able to receive or designate, where that death benefit goes as the owner of that policy, whether it's a convertible term policy or whether it's a whole life policy. And then, of course, you can do the same thing for the children. So you might decide to get, convertible term on the first generation, the siblings, and then get the whole life policies on the children, because the cash could work that way, right? Because it would cost far less to insure the children, and maybe you get the convertible term on the parents, or vice versa. It's just there's pros and cons both ways. You line that up how you want, but yeah, I love that train of thought. I love that thinking, that big picture thinking. So I'm encouraging you. You can do it. Yeah. Awesome. And remember, if you haven't subscribed, of course, I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to our channel. I know this recording is going to be posted to the regular channel, but we've got a ton of information already on our channel. We've got our pre-recorded presentation that I've referenced, of course. If you are just seeing this information for the first time and you're just beginning to vet the idea of becoming your own banker, I mean, Promise and I, we've been doing this for a couple of years now. She for a couple of years, me for 9, and we're going back and forth about what we're doing to take this thing to the next level. But if you're just vetting this concept, make sure to check out our free introductory presentation on our website or in our description. Is convertible term generally more expensive? So it's term, so it's got term-like prices, okay, which is less expensive. If I use that traditional language, it's less expensive than high cash value whole life policies, right? But it will be slightly more expensive than standard term because it does have that convertibility. So let's say you got a 20-year or a 30-year convertible term policy on the sibling. You could have that policy paying relatively low premiums because it's a term type policy, relatively low premiums, but you can also convert a portion of that policy's death benefit or all of that policy's death benefit within that time frame to permanent life insurance. So what I'm saying is if you got a 20-year term on a sibling, you could just be paying those prices for 5 years, 10 years, I mean, whatever you choose, right? But maybe before that term is going to expire, that will give you that time to make all the money moves that you want to make, of course. And then when you can see yourself paying the higher premiums to fund that policy as a whole life policy, that's when you could convert either part of it or all of its coverage to whole life insurance. Make sense? So it gives you a chance to start with a lower premium, lock in that policy while the siblings are younger, rather than waiting 10 years to be able to have the premiums for a whole life policy. You can go ahead and lock that policy in, and then you'd have that opportunity to convert over time. I wished I'd actually caught on to that concept and been exposed to that concept a little bit earlier. When I first learned about infinite banking, all I knew was get as much premium dollars together from now on to be able to have these whole life insurance policies. Whereas now I'm saying you can do both. Get you a whole life policy that you can use for banking, right? But when you know enough about this concept to know this is your lifestyle now on, lock in as much coverage as you can on yourself with those convertible term policies so that you can convert them into the whole life insurance, banking style whole life insurance later on while you have the health and the age and everything that you do now, you or anybody that you're going to have policies on. That's a great question. Great question. And remember, at the end of the day, you're the one that's picking your premium amount. We don't tell people their numbers here, right? We don't tell people their numbers. You're going to pick your premium amount. It doesn't matter if it's a whole life insurance policy or a convertible term policy. Great question. Great question. Appreciate it. And I'll keep answering yours, promise. I'm sure more people are listening in, but you're being the outspoken one for the group, and they're getting some nuggets just from you asking your questions. So by all means, or let me know how you've used any of your policies. Have you just been accumulating capital? You just been building up capital for whatever reason, or have you used your policy? And you said that does make sense. Perfect sense. Appreciate it. Do most companies offer convertible term? I can't speak for most companies. I know the companies that I own policies with and the ones that we write policies with, and the good ones are offering convertible term. And we use that when it's appropriate, of course, and when that makes sense for you. And you haven't heard much about it. Again, I haven't either. You've been practicing this concept, you said, for 2 years, I think it was, or not quite 2 years. I can't remember when it was that I was first exposed to convertible term being another product that was offered by these mutual life insurance companies. But I don't think it was in my first 2 years either. It was a few years down the road before I ever learned about that concept of being able to lock in some more of or all of your insurability sooner with convertible term. And think about this, promise, and everybody else that's listening in. Think about this. When we insure our cars, because we insure our cars and homes, like those are typical things, right? When we insure our cars, do we insure them for half of their value? For a quarter of their value? No, we don't. No, we don't. If we have an accident with our $50,000 car, we want to be able to get another $50,000. I mean, and of course, heaven forbid nothing happens to us, but I'm just talking about the vehicle. I'm just talking about what was insured, right? We want to be able to get another $50,000 car. We don't want to get a $25,000 one, right? Same thing for the home. If the home, heaven forbid, burns down, we don't want back half of the money that home was valued at. No. Well, then why would we do that with our life when it's the most valuable asset that we have? I mean, we have the cars and the homes for us. We don't have ourselves for them. That's not how that works. So hope that's helpful. Awesome. Awesome. All right, well, I had this computer. It died on me. I didn't plug it in, and it died. So I can't help these folks anymore. All right, anybody else from Promise to everybody else that's out on the YouTube today? This is our Ask Me Anything. I don't mind what question you ask about infinite banking whole life. I'm going to be an open book. Put it out there. It's going to be like an auction. Going once, going twice. Awesome. Promise, I'm going to say I hope that you reconnect with your coach. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. I hope that this has been helpful. You said you took out loans on all 3 policies so far. Okay, great. Used it to pay some debt that you're still currently paying down. Okay, gaining back some control there. I put additional PUA on all of them. Oh, yeah. And we'll continue to try and max out those. Great. Awesome. Yep. So good. I'm glad you're paying the extra. That's even going above and beyond, because when you have these policies, you get your regular scheduled ongoing premiums that you pay on that monthly or quarterly or annually or whatever basis, right? And these policies, they've been built with some flexibility, right? Where you can pay extra premiums when you can. And I suggest that you do. Promise is doing it. I'm doing it every year on each of my policies. We will call and we will ask, hey, on this policy, how much extra can I pay this year? And then the whole time we've owned these policies, we've always paid as much as we could have, if not all of the extra that those policies would allow. So you are on a roll. Fantastic. And that kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier of being able to perform multiple jobs with the same dollars. When you take dollars from your cash flows and you fund this appreciating asset, this self-collateralizing, ideal appreciating asset. It grows and it compounds. It creates that death benefit that we want. It creates that cash value that we want, that compounding, all of it. And then we can leverage that asset to go out and take care of the liabilities that we have in life, such as they are. Paying off debts, great way to do it. Financing vacations, great way to do it. Financing business or income producing activities, great. You can do that. And now literally those same dollars created that appreciating asset, funded whatever it is that we decided to deploy those dollars to. And then here we are with this system to be able to recapture principal, recapture interest that otherwise would have gone to somebody else, grow and expand that, compound that. So beautiful. I appreciate you being willing to go back and forth with me and share some of your experience. That way we're hearing about yours, we're hearing about mine. I love that. But I'm gonna call it here. I believe if we don't have any final questions, make sure to check out our free introductory presentation on our website. And if you have a coach, of course, promise, reach back out to them, have some interaction with them, keep them updated. But otherwise, you can find us out there on the webs, thecashcompound.com. My name is Jesse Durham. This has been a great pleasure for me. I'll talk to you again soon. Have a great day. Take care.